Chinese telecom giant Huawei at the center of intense international scrutiny as several countries are sounding the alarm on its potential threat to national security. The Trump administration has blacklisted the company, along with Australia, Japan, and Taiwan has done it as well. The pressure has been hurting sales, one Huawei executive saying just this morning it needs more time to become the world's largest smartphone maker, a goal it was aiming to achieve later this year. Joining me right now in a Fox Business exclusive is Huawei Technologies Chief Security Officer Andy Purdy. And Andy, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining me once again.
You're welcome. It's great to be back. Thank you.
The last time you joined me, we talked about a lot of the conversation surrounding Huawei, and that is worry that there is espionage, that the security is not safe. I want to play you a soundbite of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Vice President Mike Pence and what they recently told me about Huawei. Watch.
Huawei is an instrument of the Chinese government. They're deeply connected. It's something that's hard for Americans to understand. Our companies cooperate with the United States government. That is, they comply with our laws. But no president directs an American private company. That's very different in China. They just simply operate under a different set of rules. That's the most fundamental thing I think people need to try and get their head around. If it's the case that the Chinese Communist Party wanted to get information from technology that was in the possession of Huawei, it is almost certainly the case that Huawei would provide that to them. That deep connectivity exists inside the way their political economy operates. That's very different than the United States. That's the threat that President Trump sees from Huawei.
The whole issue of Huawei it's an issue of national security. I mean, Huawei is, in effect, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party. And to have Huawei operating as a 5G network in our country or in our allies' countries, we believe represents a fundamental compromise of our national security and the privacy of millions of citizens.
Andy, you're the Chief Security Officer at the company. What's your reaction to what you've heard?
Well, several things. First of all, at the highest levels of security clearance, the United States presented no evidence of cybersecurity wrongdoing by Huawei, according to the German and UK officials. The fact is that we don't speak through the Chinese government. They don't speak through us. But it's also very important to remember two other things. The network operators control all the data and all the access. And third, we only have very limited access to that data, and then not from Huawei networks, then only after written permission from the network operators. And then special laptops are connected to the customer network where every keystroke is logged that provides assurance and transparency. Those are the facts.
The facts also are that Huawei has settled lawsuits with a number of American companies for stealing trade secrets. The company has settled with Cisco, Motorola, T-Mobile, Microsoft. All of these lawsuits happened in the last 8 years, and you've been forced to settle. So how do you say there were no cyber breaches? I mean, this is what we discussed, you and me, the last time, to completely ignore all of these lawsuits that were settled because Huawei stole trade secrets.
The fact is the industry has quite a checkered past and quite a bit of litigation. In terms of significant cybersecurity wrongdoing, there's been no evidence in 170 countries, and the U.S. could give no evidence of that to the U.K. or Germany or our other allies.
Well, the evidence I just mentioned, that you settled these lawsuits and they were about stealing trade secrets, that is evidence.
What I'm saying is that the U.K. government and the German government has pushed back on the pressure from the U.S. government to block Huawei from their 5G networks because they say the U.S. government has not given them any evidence of significant cyber wrongdoing, and there can be risk mitigation that can be effective. Well, and that's what we recommend for the United States, just like Nokia and Ericsson are allowed to operate.
Well, let me ask you this, because you say there's no wrongdoing, and yet the company settled all of these lawsuits for trading for stealing trade secrets. So that's number one. Number two is, just recently, in the last 6 weeks, you had an executive at Vodafone who said that in Vodafone Italy, they discovered hidden back doors in Huawei equipment that would have allowed your company to access users' home networks as well as Vodafone's Italian fixed line network. we know this just happened 4 weeks ago. An executive at Vodafone said Vodafone Italy, they found backdoors. They had to raise their hand and say, wait, there are backdoors here where all of this data goes right back to China. And then it was rectified after he raised his hand. I mean, you're the security officer. Did you know about those backdoors in the Vodafone infrastructure?
Subsequent to that initial report, Vodafone has confirmed that there were no backdoors. And the fact is, look at Cisco, the 8 or 10 backdoors that were discovered in their products in the last year or two. And frankly, when you look at wrongdoing, and the Cisco case was much more than 8 years ago, I make no excuse for any wrongdoing, whether it occurred 15 years ago or whether it occurred yesterday. That's not right, and we don't countenance, and we are entitled, we should be held accountable for any kind of wrongdoing such as that.
How do we know that there aren't backdoors elsewhere when we know that Vodafone just told us they've discovered a backdoor with the data going back to China? You can't say that there are no backdoors. Vodafone already said there were, and you had to rectify it as a company.
Subsequent to that report, Vodafone has said...
It wasn't a report. It was Vodafone's executive saying, we found backdoors where our data is going to China. We need this fixed. Then Huawei went and rectified it. But how do you know, how do we know that this backdoor doesn't exist in all infrastructure out of Huawei?
Two things. Subsequently, Vodafone globally has said that that report was incorrect. There were no such backdoors. The principal deputy to the director of national intelligence has said that they can test products for backdoors. That's why Nokia and Ericsson are allowed to do business in the United States, despite their deep ties to China. We want to talk with the U.S. government about those risk mitigation mechanisms that might work to allow us to do some business in the United States.
Why would you have done all of these settlements with all of these companies if there were no issues around Huawei? You're talking about countries that have had Huawei equipment in place for a long time. You mentioned Germany. It's so expensive to do away with that and start again. Maybe that's one of the issues that these countries are saying, well, we'll stick with it right now. But there's absolutely no question about whether or not there were trade secrets stolen and whether or not there are backdoors. We just heard this. I mean, you're saying exactly the opposite of what we know took place.
But our allies understand the kind of issues that have happened in the past regarding intellectual property theft. And we are the #1 holder of patents of information communication technologies and the #1 patent holder for 5G. At the level of national security significance, there was no evidence presented by the United States to Germany or the UK or other of our allies, because there is no evidence. You heard in those statements you played for me that they are concerned it's not about the country, it's about the company. But the fact is there are proven risk mitigation mechanisms, as evidenced by Nokia and Ericsson, that can address the risk. And the DNI has said they can find the backdoors by testing. We're open to that.
As part of the settlement with Motorola, we learned from the Wall Street Journal last week, big story on Huawei, that a relative of the founder of Huawei, Ren Zhengfei, worked at Motorola, and the chairman's relative brought secret details of the company's technology to a meeting in Beijing. Another suit alleges complicity by Huawei Deputy Chairman Eric Xu in secret theft. So you actually had a member of the family of the chairman, Mr. Ren's relative, working at Motorola and stealing those secrets, according to the Wall Street Journal. And you say?
The jury in the T-Mobile case, which is now subject to not just...
this is Motorola.
There have been instances in the past that I accepted that have occurred, and I make no excuse for those.
Well, you just said there were no instances that have ever occurred, and now you said there have been instances that have occurred, which I admit.
Maria,
so
that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said there have been instances of intellectual property issues in the past. The levels of cybersecurity wrongdoing that have national security significance, the U.S. has no evidence, nor is there evidence in any of the 170 countries in which we do business. Those are two different things.
How do you explain Australia banning Huawei? How do you explain the U.S. banning Taiwan? How do you explain so many countries now seeing the same thing that the U.S. has seen and banning telecom equipment from Huawei?
The fact is that in the discussions between Huawei and Australia, all the issues and concerns were addressed, and then political pressure was put in place to get the Australian government to block Huawei. The political pressure that's being used around the world is intense, but despite that, many of our major allies are resisting it. Not because it's just about money, it's because they've gotten no evidence of significant cyber wrongdoing, and they believe there are effective risk mitigation mechanisms. And frankly, for the security of cyberspace and for the United States, we need to use those mechanisms for all network operators and all equipment providers.
Do you think it's significant to steal trade secrets, Andy?
Absolutely.
Okay, you just said there were no significant issues around espionage and intellectual property.
Maria, what I said was that at the level of national security significance, there are no allegations of wrongdoing. And when you listen closely to the quotes you played, they're suggesting that China in the future might do this kind of conduct. The fact is we can't turn over the kinds of data that they're talking about if we don't have access to it. They misunderstand our role in the networks.
When you say you don't have access to it, when you have a back door is basically hardware designed so that you can connect third-party Chinese parties to that network so that that network data can go back to the Chinese parties. So when you say that you don't have access to it, what exactly are you talking about?
I'm making two different points. The principal deputy to the Director of National Intelligence says we can test for backdoors. They can look for backdoors under strict conditions, strict oversight, like is done in the UK, and which apparently, although we can't see the terms of it, Nokia and Ericsson operate under the United States. But in terms of our servicing of equipment of our customers, where potentially one might get access to customer data, that's what I'm saying. There are very strict controls, very limited access. Every keystroke is logged, so there can be assurance that we don't have access to that data, and so then we can't be forced to turn it over.
If the Chinese government says to you, we need to see this data, you are, by law, Chinese law, forced to send whatever data to the Chinese government. You have communist members of the Communist Party on your board. Your chairman and founder of the company is a member of the Communist Party. Yes?
The fact is, we have very limited access to customer data, very limited.
The chairman doesn't. The chairman has direct access,
no, the chairman does
and so
not
does the
have
board
access.
member if they're part of the Communist Party.
No, he doesn't have access to the data that our employees in the United States, in working and supporting our customers, they don't have access to that data. Every keystroke is logged. So if any of that data was accessed, then there would be evidence that it was accessed, and there would be evidence it was sent back. We don't have that data, so we can't send it back to anyone.
You don't have the data, but you have to comply with Chinese law. And the company has communist members on the board, and the founder is a communist member. So that's the bottom line. What access? You don't need the access is there. And if the Chinese government wants any data, which is why it's a national security risk, you don't have to just prove this to me, Andy. Your company has to prove this to the world.
You are incorrect. We do not have the kind of access to data that you think. So you think that because we have access to this data, we do not. So we cannot be forced by anyone to turn over data that we don't have.